The cul-de-sac was a war zone of pastel decorations and shattered dreams when I stumbled into the chaos that would later be known as the Great Lemonade Stand debacle. Balloons bobbed mournfully above a toppled table, its cheerful yellow cloth soaked in lemonade that pooled like liquid gold on the asphalt. My nephew, Timmy, stood frozen, his small hands clutching a crumpled sign that read, "Lemonade for Cancer Kids." His eyes, wide with shock, glistened under the brim of his faded baseball cap. And there, in the center of it all, was Marjorie Hensley, our HOA president, brandishing her infamous clipboard like a scepter, her voice slicing through the summer air with the precision of a guillotine. "This is an outrage," she shrieked, her floral sundress flapping as she gestured wildly at the wreckage. "You've defiled the sanctity of Pine, VY-EW Meadows." I'd only stepped outside to check on Timmy's fundraiser, expecting nothing more than a few neighbors sipping lemonade and tossing quarters into a jar. Instead, I found myself in the eye of a storm that had been brewing since the day I moved into this manicured prison of a neighborhood 3 years ago. Pine VY-EW Meadows was a place where every lawn was a masterpiece, every mailbox a monument to conformity, and Marjorie Hensley was its unchallenged dictator. But today, her reign was about to collide with something she couldn't control, a 10-year-old boy with a heart bigger than her rulebook. Let me rewind a bit, because to understand how we got here, you need to know about Marjorie. She wasn't just the HOA president. She was a force of nature, a whirlwind of petty grievances and laminated bylaws. The woman could spot a weed from 50 yards and had once fined old Mr. Callahan for Leah VY-ing his Christmas lights up until January 3rd. Her morning ritual, I'd learned, involved patrolling the streets with a tape measure, checking fence heights and mailbox angles with the zeal of a medieval inquisitor. I'd had my own run-ins with her like the time she declared my son's soccer goal a VY Sewell blight and sent me a 10-page cease and desist letter. After weeks of back and forth, I'd moved the goal to the backyard, but not before Marjorie presented a slideshow at the HOA meeting titled The Erosion of Aesthetic Standards. I swear, the woman had a vendetta against fun. My troubles with Marjorie escalated when Timmy came to stay with us for the summer. Timmy was my sister's kid, a wiry little fighter who'd just beaten leukemia after 2 grueling years of treatment. His hair was still patchy, his frame fragile, but his spirit was a wildfire. My wife, Laura, and I had offered to take him in so my sister and her husband could catch their breath after the hospital marathon. One morning, as Timmy munched on cereal, he looked up at me with those big, determined eyes and said, "Uncle Dan, I want to do something for the kids still at the hospital. Can we have a lemonade stand to raise money?" His voice was steady, but there was a tremor of hope in it that hit me like a freight train. How do you say no to that? So we got to work. Timmy spent days designing signs with crayons and glitter, each one a masterpiece of childhood optimism. I helped him mix up a batch of lemonade his secret recipe, involve a splash of orange juice, and we planned to set up in our driveway that Saturday. It was supposed to be simple, a kid, a table, a cause. But in Pine VY-EW Meadows, nothing was ever simple. The trouble started Thursday afternoon. I was in the garage with Timmy, taping his signs to poster boards, when I heard the telltale clack, clack, clack of Marjorie's wedge sandals. It was a sound that sent shivers down the spine of every resident in a 2-block radius. I braced myself as she appeared in the doorway, her clipboard clutched like a shield, her lips pursed into a thin line of disapproval. "Daniel," she said, her voice dripping with that saccharine venom she reserved for rule breakers, "what's all this?" Her eyes flicked to Timmy's signs, which proudly declared, "Help my friends at Children's Hospital." I forced a smile, hoping to defuse her before she went full dictator. "Just a little fundraiser, Marjorie. Timmy's a cancer survivor, and he wants to raise money for the hospital that saved him. Nothing big, just a lemonade stand." I rested a hand on Timmy's shoulder, thinking maybe, just maybe, she'd soften at the sight of the kid with a cause. Marjorie didn't even glance at Timmy. "That's all very touching," she said, flipping through her clipboard with the efficiency of a librarian on a mission. "But you know the rules, Daniel. Section 8, Paragraph 2. No commercial active VY ties are permitted on residential property without board approval. This, she gestured at the signs like they were contraband, is a clear VY violation. I felt my jaw tighten. Marjorie, it's not a business. It's a charity lemonade stand. For kids with cancer. Timmy's 10 years old, for God's sake. She raised an eyebrow, unmoved. Rules don't bend for sentiment, Daniel. If I let you do this, next thing you know, Mrs. Larson will be selling her hideous pottery on her lawn, and we'll have food trucks clogging the streets. I'm sorry, but you'll need to cancel this immediately, or I'll have to issue a V violation notice. Fine started due lot 200. She tapped her pen against the clipboard, a smug little rhythm that made my blood boil. Timmy's face crumpled, and I could see the fight draining out of him. I wanted to argue, to tell her exactly where she could shove her bylaws, but not in front of him. We'll figure it out, I said through gritted teeth, ushering her out before I lost my cool. After she left, I knelt beside Timmy, who was staring at his signs like they'd betrayed him. Hey, buddy, I said softly, some people are just stuck, but we're not GIVYing up. We'll find a way to make this happen, I promise. That night, after Timmy went to bed, I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I read the HOA bylaws. All 47 soul-crushing pages of them. It was like wading through quicksand, but then I found its section 14, buried under a pile of jargon about mailbox maintenance. Residents could host charitable events with board approval or sponsorship from a recognized community organization. A spark ignited in my brain. Marjorie thought she'd won, but I was about to rewrite the rules of her game. The next morning, I went into overdrive. First, I called the Children's Hospital, where a coordinator named Sarah practically cried when I told her about Timmy's plan. She promised to send volunteers and set up an information booth. Next, I reached out to the Pine VYEW Community Center, who agreed to co-sponsor the event in exchange for a mention in the program. Feeling bold, I even called the mayor's office. Mayor Eleanor Brooks was a local legend, a no-nonsense woman who'd made healthcare reform her mission. Her assistant, Greg, was so moved by Timmy's story that he promised the mayor would stop by if her schedule allowed. By Friday afternoon, I had a stack of permits, a sponsorship letter, and a verbal commitment from City Hall. I didn't tell Marjorie any of this. Instead, I emailed the official HOA application to the board's inbox, knowing from past experience that Marjorie only checked it every Tuesday. The timing was perfect to be blindsided, and there'd be nothing she could do about it. Or so I thought. Saturday dawned bright and brutal, the kind of summer day that made you sweat just thinking about MOVYing. Laura and I transformed our cul-de-sac into a miniature festival. We had a permit to block off the street, so we set up tables for lemonade, cupcakes, and a raffle with prizes donated by local businesses. A bike shop kicked in a shiny new cruiser, and the bakery down the road sent over a 3-tiered cake. Timmy's lemonade stand was the centerpiece, adorned with balloons and a banner Laura had stayed up late sewing. Neighbors pitched in, too. Mrs. Callahan brought her famous snickerdoodles, and Mr. Larson set up a face-painting station for the kids. By 10 a.m., the cul-de-sac was buzzing with laughter, music from a borrowed speaker, and the clink of coins hitting Timmy's donation jar. Timmy was in his element, pouring lemonade with a grin that could have powered the sun. I was snapping photos when I heard the unmistakable clack, clack, clack of Marjorie's approach. She stormed into the cul-de-sac like a hurricane in a cardigan, her face a mask of fury that made the balloons seem to shrink. Daniel, she bellowed, drawing every eye in a 50-foot radius. What is the meaning of this travesty? I told you this was forbidden. She waved her clipboard, and I swear I saw a kid duck behind his mom. I kept my cool, leaning against the table with a smile I hoped looked more confident than I felt. Morning, Marjorie. This is a sanctioned charitable event. I submitted the paperwork Monday. It's all above board city permits, community sponsorship, the works. I handed her a folder I'd prepared, thick with every document she could possibly demand. She snatched it, her fingers trembling as she scanned the pages. For a moment, I thought she might back down, but then her eyes narrowed. This permit covers the cul-de-sac, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. But your driveway and front yard are still residential property. You're in violation of Section 3, Paragraph 9, unauthorized structures. She pointed at Timmy's stand like it was a meth lab. Before I could respond, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Heads turned as a sleek black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Mayor Brooks herself, her silver hair catching the sunlight like a halo. She was shorter than I'd expected, but she carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who'd faced down worse than Marjorie. The crowd parted as she made her way toward us, her aide trailing with a stack of folders. "Young man," she said, crouching to meet Timmy's eyes, "I hear you're doing something incredible today. I'm Eleanor Brooks, and it's an honor to meet you." She shook his hand, and Timmy's jaw dropped so low I thought it might hit the pavement. Marjorie, meanwhile, looked like she'd been slapped with a fish. But instead of retreating, she barreled forward, her voice shrill. "Mayor Brooks, I'm Marjorie Hensley, HOA president. I hate to interrupt, but this event is in violation of our bylaws. As president, it's my duty to enforce." The mayor raised a hand, her expression one of polite confusion. "I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding, MS. Hensley, this event is fully approved by the city, and from what I understand, you're on board. I spoke with 2 of your colleagues yesterday, and they were thrilled to support it." She nodded to her aide, who handed Marjorie a copy of the approval letter. Marjorie's face went from crimson to ash. "Which colleagues?" she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. "That would be us," said a voice behind her. It was Susan and Tom, 2 board members who'd always seemed cowed by Marjorie's tirades. Today they stood tall, their arms crossed. "We're VYEU'd the application and approved it," Susan said, her tone firm. "It's for a good cause, Marjorie. You should be proud." Marjorie's composure shattered. "You can't approve anything without me," she screamed, her voice cracking like a whip. "I'm the president. This is my neighborhood." Parents pulled their kids closer, and I saw Timmy's lip tremble. I started toward him, but before I could move, Marjorie did something unthinkable. She lunged for Timmy's stand, her hands grabbing the table's edge. "If I can't stop this, no one's profiting from it," she yelled, and with a heave, she tipped it over. Lemonade splashed everywhere. Cups rolled into the street, and Timmy's signs crumpled under the weight of the table. He let out a sob, and my heart broke clean in 2. I sprinted toward her, shouting, "Marjorie, stop!" But I didn't get there in time. One of the mayor's security guards, a broad-shouldered guy with a no-nonsense glare, stepped in, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," he said, his voice like gravel. Marjorie, wild-eyed, wrenched free and swung her clipboard, catching the guard square in the chest. The crowd gasped, and for a split second, everything froze. Then the guard's partner moved in, and before I could blink, Marjorie was in handcuffs, her protests echoing as they led her to a patrol car that had just pulled up. "This is an injustice," she wailed. "I'm protecting our community." Mayor Brooks, unfazed, knelt beside Timmy, who was staring at the wreckage of his stand. "Let's fix this, okay?" she said softly, and together, they started picking up the pieces. She handed him a check for $1,000, her personal donation, and promised to match whatever he raised that day. The gesture was like a spark, reigniting the crowd's energy. Neighbors rushed to help, and within minutes, the stand was back up better than before. The rest of the day was a blur of joy. Timmy poured lemonade like a pro, the raffle sold out, and the hospital's booth was swarmed with people eager to learn more. By sundown, we'd raised to $9,500, enough to make a real difference for the kids at Children's Hospital. The local paper showed up, snapping photos of Timmy and the mayor clinking lemonade cups, and the story went viral online, with hashtags like the Lemonade Hero trending by Monday. Marjorie's fallout was swift and brutal. She was charged with assault and disorderly conduct, slapped with a $2,000 fine, and sentenced to 150 hours of community service fittingly at the Children's Hospital, where I heard she spent her days scrubbing floors under the watchful eye of the same nurses who'd cheered for Timmy. The HOA board called an emergency meeting the following week, and I sat in the back, watching as Marjorie tried to defend herself, her voice thin and shaky. When the vote came, It was unanimous. She was out. Her clipboard hit the floor with a pathetic thud, and for the first time, I saw her look small, like a balloon that had lost its air. But the real VY Tory wasn't Marjorie's downfall. It was Timmy, standing taller than ever, his eyes bright with the knowledge that he'd done something extraordinary. As we packed up the last of the decorations that night, he hugged me tight and whispered, "Thanks for believe VYing in me, Uncle Dan." And in that moment, under the fading summer sky, I knew we'd won more than a fight with an HOA tyrant. We'd given a kid the chance to change the world one glass of lemonade at a time. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.